There are a few features on the control panel that the attendees should know. First, be familiar with the Raise Your Hand button. This button is located along the left side of the control panel. It allows you to virtually raise your hand if you have questions or if you want to respond to a question being asked by the presenter. Click this button to raise your hand now. Click the button again to lower your hand. Another important feature of the control panel is the Questions pane. To submit a question, type it in the question box. These may be questions related to the presentation or technical questions related to the GoToWebinar system. You may also be asked by the presenter to type your ideas or responses here as part of an exercise during the webinar. Please send a quick note in your questions panel now. Questions may be submitted at any time. These will be monitored and we will try to respond quickly if we see something that shouldn't wait until the question and answer period, such as making a clarification. During the webinar, you may be asked to respond to a polling question or survey. Please take the time to participate as your input and ideas are valuable to the group. Please try to stay attentive and to interact as much as possible during this webinar. The quality of your experience depends on your attention and participation. Try to avoid distractions by responding to emails, checking Facebook, instant messaging, or working on other tasks at your computer. If you need to step away for a moment, do not close the GoToWebinar window, as you will be required to log in again if you wish to rejoin the session. If you experience problems with the audio, one possible solution is to use the conference call number and listen to the presentation using your phone. Click the Use Telephone option in the audio pane of your control panel to view the conference call number. This webinar is being recorded, and the online archive will be available to view on the CAPA website in approximately 2 weeks. Now I'd like to hand the virtual microphone over to Leanne.
All right, thank you, Beth. Hi, everyone. My name is Leanne Matullo, and welcome to Yoga Mindfulness Meditation. I am really excited to do this. I've actually never spoken about yoga and this line of work over a webinar, so this will be really cool, although I love webinars. So what I thought I would do is give you a little bit of background about me. I am a yoga instructor. I have my 200-hour certification, which is that RYT, Registered Yoga Teacher. And then I also have a specialization in kids and teen yoga, which is actually kind of how I got into teaching in general. And then I've been a dancer for over 22 years. So performing dance, taught dance across the country, was on dance team in college. My specialty was in contemporary and modern for any other dancers out there. So a little bit more about me. That's my husband. I almost forgot about this slide. He teaches partner yoga with me, so he's not certified, but he gets into the practice as well. But I went to University of Pittsburgh for my undergrad. That's where I pledged CAPA. I was super involved in CAPA there as VPO and new member chairman. And went to George Washington University for my master's, and my master's is in education and human development. And I've been super involved with CAPA as well, so CAPA has been really good to me. I was a leadership consultant a few years back, and I've been a province director of chapters and PR chairman and a chapter council advisor and a standards advisor. I mean, just all these wonderful things with CAPA has kept me connected. It's been really great. And now I actually work on the foundation side for CAPA and for headquarters, although I live in central Pennsylvania, so I work remotely for them. And then in terms of dance and yoga, there's all types of things that I teach. So I wanted to just give you a sense of what I teach, where I'm coming from. These are some of the kids that I teach in the area in central Pennsylvania. I was also a teaching artist in DC for a while, and so I taught like jazz and hip hop, and then I also got into teaching those kids yoga as well. I teach power vinyasa. I teach all levels classes, beginner to advanced. Restorative classes. I work with athletes, I work with dancers, senior citizens. I teach partner yoga, acrobatic yoga, and then corporate yoga. So lots of different stuff. And before we move on, I'm really curious to know from you all who has practiced yoga, what maybe style you practice if you do, and if you haven't, what brought you to this webinar. So if you wouldn't mind typing that in, so I can get a sense of where we are.
So I have from Amy that she's practiced yoga before. I have Stephanie saying that she's practiced Vinyasa and Bikram. Oh my goodness. I have Krista who practiced yoga, but she's not really sure what type.
Okay.
I have Anne who has done meditative hatha and slow flow. And I have Barbara who has taken only a few classes but wants to learn more to achieve flexibility. I have Melanie who practices dance and yoga. And I have Carolyn who says, I've done a little bit of yoga, but not much. I know it makes me feel better, and I'm constantly trying to balance my life, so I thought it could help.
Right on.
And Carmen who said she practices power yoga.
Cool. Awesome. All right, great. So a lot of y'all have practiced yoga before. So that's really how I framed this webinar too, is for people who have been practicing, but maybe want to learn a little bit more about yoga in itself, and maybe some people who have only done it once or twice or never and are just kind of curious, who heard the benefits and that sort of thing. So awesome. All right, so there is so much to talk about, and honestly, like you'll hear me probably say a million times in this webinar that I wish we could just dive deeper, because these areas you could literally have 45-minute conversations, if not more, about all of these things. So what we're going to talk about tonight, what the heck is yoga? So what is it? We'll go really, really brief into the history and origins, where it came from, and then also the types. Again, this is going to be a really broad overview. And then the 8-limbed path of yoga. So a lot of people come to yoga for the asana, which is the physical, the workout part of yoga, but there's actually 7 other pieces to it. And then we'll talk about the benefits of the practice, and we're actually going to have a little break. So right after that, we'll take some questions. So please jot down questions. We'll be monitoring them throughout, and I'd love to answer them if I can. And then we'll go into mindfulness. I think mindfulness it's been a buzzword lately. So what is it, and how do we practice it? And meditation, and then I'll give you guys some fun apps, resources, podcasts, things that I really like that I use for my classes and just in general. So hopefully that sounds pretty good. So before we move on, just for the sake of this evening and why we're here, let's just do a little practice, a little meditative practice, a little breath work. So nobody's in the room probably with you, maybe they are, but go ahead and close your eyes. And nobody can see you, right? So no, just close your eyes. And I really want you to feel rooted wherever you're sitting. So perhaps you're sitting in a chair, perhaps you're on your bed, or sitting on the floor. And then just bring your hands to your lap. Palms can face up or down. They can be on your lap or on your knees. Begin to take a few deep breaths. So inhale in through your nose, and then exhale out through your mouth, and make it an audible exhale. So kind of like you're fogging up a mirror. And do that 2 more times, inhaling in through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. And then this time, begin to shrug your shoulders as you inhale. And as you exhale, relax everything back down. Inhaling, shrugging your shoulders up towards your ears, and then exhaling, letting everything back down. And then do that maybe 1 or 2 more times. Returning to a neutral state with your eyes closed, and just check in with how you're feeling. How you're feeling in that moment. And then open your eyes. Any thoughts? I'd love to hear thoughts on how you're feeling right now. We can come back to that. But little pranayama, a little meditation practice as we continue on. So, okay. I have a video that I thought would be fun to show before we get too deep. Maybe you guys can relate.
I don't love it. I quit then. That's fine. I don't want to be a sous chef the rest of my life. I know he lives in Long Island City, but, is that an excuse? If you've been texting someone for, 2 weeks and they haven't texted you back, it's not love. Fine, but I also just think, I asked him a direct question, answer it via text. I texted you 6 times. Maybe his phone is, broken. Do you guys want to be next to each other? Amazing. That would be literally amazing. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Miss you. No, I miss you a lot. I miss the way you would talk to me. I guess I love your voice. You know, it's like deep, but also kind of squeaky. I'm in yoga class. It's a yoga class. I just walked into the girls in here. They're not pretty, but
Right, like I did that.
okay, well,
I
why
took
don't
you 6
you read the whole thing to me?
I'm a bit of a sweater. Very.
Is that one sentence, or is there grammar?
Good morning, yogis and yoginis. Would you please move your mats a little bit closer together so we can fit in some more people?
Alright, like, because, like, you don't have it.
Thank you. Bring in the Groupon people. Child's pose.
Oh my god, no, but like you're alright. Everyone is a butt.
Your butt is in my head.
Give your roots soil. Yes, come into Shavasana, corpse pose. This is a donation-based studio. We cannot survive without your donations. So give generously, give often, give what you can, but you don't have to give anything. But we will go out of business if we don't get something.
Okay, so we couldn't take this evening too seriously, so I had to just throw that in there. Thought it was a really funny slide. Maybe you felt like that at yoga before, maybe not. I hear that a lot. People don't always want to go because they don't want to be surrounded by people, or I hear other things like they're not flexible enough or whatever, but hopefully your yoga practice and your classes have been different and not exactly the same. So let's get back into some of the topics at hand. So defined. What does yoga mean? And yoga, the word itself, is literally means to yoke or to union. It comes from the word yuj, which is a Sanskrit word. And Sanskrit is an ancient language. It's a dead language, kind of like Latin, that originated in India. So you'll often hear Sanskrit terminology if you're in a yoga class. So if you've been to yoga class before, you might hear mountain pose, but the Sanskrit term is Tadasana. Or you might hear child's pose, also balasana. So it always has that asana at the end to signify that it's a posture, that it's an actual physical posture, but that's where the term comes from, this ancient language called Sanskrit. And the word, when you're thinking of yoga, this idea of union, like what are we bringing together? What are we yoking together? And at the simplest form, it's exercising the mind, the body, and the breath. So it's bringing in all of those things, and that's literally what I tell the kids. Like I literally have them point to their minds and hug their bodies and point to their mouths for breath. So it's exercising all of those things, the mind, body, and breath. Yoga originated, it's been around for a really long time. A lot of people don't realize this because in Western culture it's still kind of like new and fresh, but it's been around since 3000 BC, originating in India. So a pretty cool, I think that's a pretty cool thing that this practice has been around for 5,000 years, and it's still quite strong. And then there are so many types of yoga, as you guys had said that you practice all different kinds, hatha, power, bikram, so many different styles. I teach vinyasa, and vinyasa is simply breath synchronized movement. So basically what that means is you might hear a teacher say, inhale as you lift your arms up to the sky, and then exhale as you bring your hands down towards your toes. It's just linking movement with the breath, and it's almost like a dance on your yoga mat is also how I liken it. And the reason I like that is because I am a former dancer, and there's all different styles within vinyasa itself. I've had somebody else say that they practice hatha yoga. So most often hatha moves a little bit slower. It also focuses more on the breath work. There's definitely meditation for sure. Power yoga is a little bit more vigorous, more cardio in there. You have Iyengar, which uses lots of props. So if you walked into a yoga studio, you might see blocks and bolsters and things like that, and you're like, I don't know what to do with these. If you're taking an Iyengar class from a teacher who is trained in that method, they'll often show you how to use all of those different things. So we always say props are our friend. They're really great. Bikram is in a hot room, 105-degree room usually, and it's the same sequence of poses. I know I'm flying through these, so I do have an article at the end of this that will point you so you can read a little bit more about the different styles and to see what's right for you. There's, Baptiste, there's Ashtanga, there's restorative, like a slow flow yoga. Somebody else was saying that they took that. There's also yin yoga, which is more of stretching, deep stretching. And so it's not necessarily restorative or meditative. I don't want to say it's painful, but it's not necessarily comfortable. But it's a really good thing, especially if you're an athlete, if you're a runner, if you're kind of trying to find some cross training. So lots of different styles. And the reason I touch on all of these different styles is to say that if you go to one class and you don't like it, that's totally fine. It doesn't necessarily mean yoga isn't for you. It's just you have to find the style that's right for you. So moving on to the 8-limbed path of yoga. I love, 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 love talking about this, and I won't dwell on it, but this is the 8 limbs of yoga, what yoga truly means. We talked about mind, body, and breath. This is going a little bit deeper. And the 8 limbs, I'll read down the right side, are the yamas, the niyamas, pranayama, asana, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So those are all Sanskrit terms, and you'll often see this depicted as on a tree, like there would be 8 branches of a tree, and that's how this is drawn out. But I just thought that this was a fun little graphic. So there's a fantastic book that goes into the first 2 limbs, the yamas and niyamas. The book is called Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele, and I have that in the resources. But basically, the yamas are moral considerations. Both of these are the ways that you kind of like live your life off of your mat. So they're moral considerations. So they're taking things into consideration like kindness, truthfulness, non-stealing, generosity, and they all have Sanskrit terms attached to them. So asteya is one of them. So you'll see like that language kind of blended in throughout. And then the niyamas are self-observation, self-discipline. So those are things like contentment, practicing contentment, so not chasing joy or wallowing in sadness, but really trying to have like a more of a level playing field. Self-study, so studying whether it's academics, whether it's spirituality, whether anything truly, but it's really getting to know yourself and staying true to your values. Surrender, the idea of surrender is another niyama, so surrendering to the community, to being a part of something for the greater good, something larger than yourself. And it's really interesting. So if this kind of interests you, I really encourage you to do some further reading. But those are the first 2 limbs. And then we get into the pranayama. So the pranayama is that breath control. And that's what we did, just a couple slides ago. So just taking those gentle inhales and exhales, making that exhale sound like fogging up a mirror, shrugging your shoulders. That is breath control, in its simplest form. So really focusing and bringing awareness to the breath. And the 4th limb down is the asana. So this is where a lot of people come to yoga. They come to yoga to get the workout, to get some stress relief, to reduce anxiety, flexibility, increase mobility, all of those things. And that's just one piece of the pie, and that's asana. And that's where you'll hear all of those terms, Tadasana, Balasana, Utkatasana, all of those have the asana attached to the end. So those are the first 4. And then the last 4 really have to do with meditation, and we're going to get into that a little bit further, the further into the webinar we go. But pratyahara is the first step in meditation. So it's that you're coming to sit, on your yoga mat or on a pillow, or you're lying down in bed, what have you, and it's that drawing away of the senses. So you're starting to tune in internally. So you hear like sirens going on outside, or like the dog barking, or maybe the TV in the next room, but you're really starting to focus and turn your focus inward. And then dharana is that prolonged concentration. So this is where you're kind of getting deeper into that meditative stance. So that prolonged concentration, maybe this is where you begin to truly meditate on a mantra, or you have a guided meditation, or you're listening to a piece of music, or maybe you're just in silence. Whatever it might be, that's where it becomes prolonged. And then dhyana is where you're in it. It is that true meditative stance. You're there for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Really nothing that's kind of like penetrating into your mind. And I often say too, when we're practicing meditation, like it's not an idea of totally clearing your mind. A lot of people think that. The minute that you say, I want to clear my mind, then like, you know, a giant purple elephant like walks into it. Like that just doesn't happen. It's just this idea of recognizing that thoughts are coming in and then kind of moving them aside and making room for that mantra or that music or, you know, just imagery, like visualizing a blue sky or whatever it could be. So that's your meditative stance. And then samadhi is ultimate enlightenment. And this is something that's really, really hard to describe. A lot of people, a lot of practitioners of yoga, they believe that samadhi is that ultimate connection with the divine, whatever your divine would be, whether it's God or whether it's something else. And so that's the ultimate connection. That's where people are trying to get to when they're practicing meditation, is that ultimate enlightenment. And I'll also pause for a moment and say that yoga is not a religion. There is no religion attached to yoga. It's a philosophy. But it does have crossovers the more that you study religion with Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. There are lots of crossovers, but yoga in and of itself is not a religion. So again, I could talk, you know, quite a bit about all of these areas, but this is just an introduction and to show you that yoga isn't just about, you know, isn't just about the asana, it isn't about the physical. It has to do with all of these things. And then one last slide before I stop and break for some questions. So please type in your questions as we go. But getting into some of the benefits of yoga, I'm sure that you've heard a lot of these before. Calming and clearing the mind, relieving anxiety and stress, encouraging balance, coordination, flexibility, helping with concentration and focus. I've heard a lot of people say that yoga has helped them be able to focus better at work. And same with kids, you know, they're better able to focus on their homework or in class. Promoting better sleep, that's a big one. People who have insomnia or just have trouble falling asleep or having a nice restful sleep. Boosting creativity is another big one. Bolstering confidence and social skills, developing motor skills in kids, that's another huge one. I've heard many parents say that yoga has really helped their kids to develop some really great motor skills and also confidence. And then helping to focus on the present moment and that idea of mindfulness. And then there's some other ones in this graphic. Bringing oxygen to the brain, peace of mind, we've talked about that. Less stress, increased lung capacity, less chance of heart disease, increased metabolism. All those twisting poses are really good for digestion and for metabolism. So lots of really great benefits. So with that, I'll pause and take some questions.
Don't have any questions at the moment, Leanne. I just have that Amy and Ann both had some feedback on the video. They both really appreciated it. We got an Ella.
Okay, good.
And I totally understand this video, been there, done that.
That's so funny. Yeah, me too. The Groupon people, that really got me. I was like, oh yeah, Groupons after the first of the year, you know, everybody coming back to the yoga studio or to the gym or whatever. Okay, so no questions. All right, awesome. Well, let's continue on then. Let's go into some mindfulness. I love this little cartoon, Mindful or Mindful. Maybe, you know, the left side feels like you sometimes and you're trying to attain that right image. The left image is what we call the monkey mind a lot. And you might hear yoga teachers say that, but it's how do we kind of compartmentalize these thoughts? How do we, I don't want to say control our thoughts, but recognize them and acknowledge them and become, you know, more aware of the present moment. So mindful is I just looked up the Webster, you know, definition in the dictionary, and it's the state of being aware, a state where one focuses on the present moment. So how do we, you know, put some of these things aside from the past and from the future and just focus on the present moment? And I love these quotes. These are some really cool people. The first one is from Judith Lassiter. She says that it is our dedication to living with open hearts and our commitment to the day-to-day details of our lives that will transform us. When we are open to the present moment, we shine forth. And Judith Lassiter, she's a yoga teacher. She also has her doctorate in psychology. She's also a physical therapist. She's written some yoga books. Again, if you're really interested, I have one of her books in the resources section at the end. It's called Living Your Yoga. And then the second quote quote, and that's become like my personal mantra for the past couple weeks, is Zen is doing just one thing at a time. And this is from a monk. His name is Wude. He actually wasn't, he was born in LA and became a monk actually relatively recently. But this is something that's really hard to do. It's like ultimate mindfulness, right? Like it is really hard to just do one thing at a time. Like to not have your email up while you're working, or to not have your cell phone constantly pinging and whatever. To like just, watch a TV show, and not have like something else going on, like you're writing something or you're on your computer or whatever. It's really, really hard to do one thing at a time. And then the last one from Michael Singer, the day you decide that you are more interested in being aware of your thoughts than the thoughts themselves, that is the day you will find your way out. So this is that concept of, noticing your thoughts, but recognizing that you are not your thoughts. So how can we get to this? How can we be more mindful? And, people are always like, oh, like yoga teachers, like this is just so simple for them. No, like this is a practice. This is very, very hard to do. You don't just snap your fingers one day and like totally get it. So just some ideas. When you're washing the dishes or when you're cooking dinner or whatever, these are just some ideas like for you as you like go off, off of the mat, off of this webinar, is to just wash the dishes. Like observe your thoughts. Like if you're washing the dishes or cooking or, something else that's relatively simple, like see where your thoughts go. Like do they jump like backwards from what happened to the day, like replaying certain things? Do they jump ahead? Like why not try and focus on that present moment, what you're doing right there in that moment. Putting the phone away. Just put the phone away at meal times, if like you're with friends or you're with your family. I can't tell you when I traveled as an LC, like how many times I would go and I love all the chapters I visited, but how many times I would go to dinner and like all the women would just throw their cell phones on the table and they wouldn't talk to each other. It was amazing. So really, like, just put it away. Like, really put it away. Talk to your spouse or to your friends or, your mom or whomever, and don't worry about, like, what's coming next. Don't look, behind them at the door to see who's coming into the party next. Just, like, really be focused in that present moment. And then I say this a lot in my classes, just, like, for the love, shut down email. Just shut down email. Just check it 3 times a day. It'll be fine. And just see how much work you can get done by focusing on each of those tasks at hand. So other things, show gratitude as much as you can, really saying thank you and being thankful for really simple things. If like you're walking out the door and you're like, man, it is a really beautiful fall day. Like that's a time to just like think internally, like I'm grateful for this. Like there's something to be grateful for. And I know that sounds like a little woo-woo, but true, it's true. Practicing kindness. Approaching life with curiosity is a big one, like genuinely being interested in what other people have to say and what their lives are like and what they're doing. These are all ways to try and bring more mindfulness into your life. They're all ways of trying to be in the present moment. And then the other thing that is also really hard to do, and it's a practice, something that I work on all the time, is this idea of your thoughts, that we are not our thoughts. So I can't tell you how many times like I've heard from, me personally or my husband or whomever, like, when that time when you're laying down to go to bed and like all of these, thoughts coming flashing across your mind, all the things that happened that day that have to get done tomorrow, like all the things that you're feeling, and just all of it, and you feel like you can't calm yourself down enough to go to sleep. It's really, the practice of mindfulness is recognizing like, okay, I'm having all of these thoughts. But just the fact that like they're all frenetic and they're all running around in my mind doesn't mean that I am like that. Doesn't mean that I need to be anxious in this moment. So observing them, thinking, isn't it interesting that I'm thinking all of these things? How can I structure my day tomorrow to tackle some of these things one at a time? And worrying about them, what happened to the day, what's going to happen tomorrow, isn't going to help me right now in this present moment. Worrying doesn't really do anything. So that's a really hard thing to do, but you do have the ability to change your thoughts and to take it in a different direction. So before we move on from here, from this idea of mindfulness, before we get into meditation, I'd like to hear from you guys. Maybe just take a moment and type in a way that you could be more mindful, that you could bring that into your day-to-day, and that way we can give each other some ideas. There's got to be thoughts out there, right?
So Krista says, I could be more mindful by listening to others before preparing my own response.
Oh, that's such a good one. Any others out there? Any other ways to practice more mindfulness?
Oh, got them coming in now. So Anne says, listen to the silence underneath the words of the person you are speaking to, as Eckhart Tolle suggests.
Oh, gosh, love that.
And Melanie says, implement a one screen rule. If I'm watching TV, no texting. If I'm working, no texting.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. Or even like tabs on your computer. Does anybody else do that? Where like you have like multiple tabs open in like Google Chrome or whatever?
I am definitely guilty of that. So Melanie, I think I'm going to take your idea.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing those. All right, so let's get into, unless anything else comes through, let's start getting into meditations. We talked about mindfulness. Let's get into meditation itself. So you'll see here, become intensely conscious of the present moment. This is the essence of meditation. That's true. So mindfulness and meditation kind of go hand in hand. And I also want to touch on some of these symbols. So the symbol in the bottom left, that Om symbol, that like dark, the black symbol, I've gotten a lot of questions when I've done past teachings. That this is the symbol for Om. So you might chant Om in a class, and Om means the divine. And again, that's your interpretation of the divine. And what I love about yoga is that it's really what you make it. You know, there's not like a dictation of like this is what yoga absolutely means. Like yes, it's like this union of mind, body, and breath. But again, like this Om symbol is whatever your version of the divine is. And then the Namaste on the right. I didn't know this for the longest time. I was like, okay, I'm not going to say namaste in class at the end of class to a teacher if I don't know what it means. But this simply translates to the light in me honors the light in you. So it's basically showing mutual respect, teacher to student, student to teacher. So just wanted to throw that out there. So ways to meditate. I touched on a few of these earlier. There's not one size fits all. And as you practice meditation, you'll find that you prefer some methods one day and some methods another day. You know, you might change it up. I got really into it with guided meditations. I liked kind of listening to somebody's voice guide me through a visualization or through a breathing practice. And so there are some really great apps out there to do that. You can download the Headspace app on your phone, and that's free for the first 10 meditations. I think they're 10 minutes at a time. There's an app called Breathe that's really great, and then that's free. And there's one called Omvana, which is also free. There's some pay for pieces, but for like part of it, it is free. But that's a really great introduction. And there's meditations for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Like you kind of can work your way up, and that's really helpful. Some people really like the mantra or the chanting. They like listening to a mantra or even developing a personal mantra, like whether it's like I am enough or, whatever your personal mantra might be, or this idea of Zen is doing one thing at a time and then just setting a timer and repeating that over and over in your mind. Some people have done that. Also, there are some mantras in Sanskrit that you could check out. Diva Pramal, who I don't think I have on the resources, but she has some really beautiful Sanskrit mantras that are set to music. And so you can put those on for 10 to 15 minutes and just listen. Other ideas, ways to meditate, candle gazing, so literally gazing at a candle, looking at a candle and just, taking a few deep breaths. And a lot of people will use the candle as a focal point, and then after like a minute or so, they'll close their eyes and they'll settle into meditation. Silence, sometimes I just really need 5 minutes, 10 minutes of peace. I just want it to be quiet. I don't need anything else. I just want to sit there in quiet. Any type of soft music, so if you like a certain type of music, if you like classical piece or whatever, like putting that on for a bit. And then pranayama, so using your pranayama, that breath retention, that breath work, to guide you into a meditative state, or to use it for 3 minutes or so to get you there. And there isn't a set time that you need to meditate. I mean, you can work your way up. You can say every day this week I'm going to try and meditate for at least 2 or 3 minutes and set a timer or see how it goes. Or every day for the next 10, 15 days, I'm going to use the Headspace app and meditate for 10 minutes to a guided meditation. And then maybe you'll work your way up to 15 minutes or 20 minutes, or maybe you'll listen to a longer guided meditation, which is called Yoga Nidra. Yoga, and then Nidra is N-I-D as in dog, R. And that's usually a 30 to 60 minute meditation, guided meditation, and I'll tell you where to find that. You can look on, like iTunes and like podcasts, but also yogadownload.com and on YouTube. But that's a relaxation meditation, so a little bit longer. But it's all about working your way up to it. So the different ideas to meditate. Are there any questions on any of that, on any of the mindfulness and meditation pieces
We
so
just
far?
We just have that Krista is a fan of the Headspace app, so we got.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah. Headspace is awesome, and the Breathe app is really great too. If anybody on the call has kids, I've heard that kids really, really like the Breathe app, and I've used it too.
Stephanie is another fan of the Headspace app. That's fantastic.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I really like it. Well, so if there's no questions on meditation, I'll talk a little bit longer about pranayama. And let's see, I'm checking ahead. Yeah, I'll spend some time on pranayama because I think that the breathing practices will really help you settle into meditation. And what I love about the breath retention practices are these things that you can take with you anywhere. You can take them to work if you're feeling anxious. You can take them before you're doing a presentation. If you need to go to trying to calm yourself down and go to sleep at night. These are things that are really, really practical in nature. So the first pranayama technique is called Samavriti. I'm not even going to try and spell it for you, but Samavriti. And this is equal turning breath. So we're going to have some silence on the call right now, and that's cool. But basically what it means is that your inhales are matching the lengths of your exhales. So we'll just practice this for a moment. So exhale all of your air out. And then you're going to inhale to a count of 4, an internal count of 4. And then exhale to a count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Inhale right away. 2, 3, 4. And then exhale. 2, 3, 4. Maybe practicing that 1 or 2 more times. And this is a really good breath to use when you're feeling anxious or erratic. It's a really calming breath. It's really great for practicing your meditation. It's also really great, again, like I said, if you're feeling tense before a presentation, before you're about to, perform, if there's any performers out there, before any type of public speaking, if you're just anxious in general. Some people get really anxious even in the grocery store, just like there's a lot going on, or on the subway or metro or whatever. So this is a really good breath to use, and you'll basically try and work yourself up from 4 to maybe a count of 6 to then a count of 8. And that also helps to increase lung capacity. So that's just equal turning breath. The length of your inhales is matching the length of your exhales. And then we have Ujjayi breath, which if you've taken yoga classes before, you might have heard people say, okay, practice your Ujjayi. And that is victorious breath. It's audible breath, and it's basically it's hard. It definitely is hard to practice, and it's even harder for me to try and do over just audio. But what you're trying to do is constrict the back of your throat as you inhale and exhale to make sounds like ocean waves. So you're literally making an audible breath. And I tell the kids I teach, imagine that there's nostrils on your throat, and then I always get giggles. But imagine that there literally is nostrils on your throat, and you're really trying to make the breath audible. And that warms the body. So the reason that we do Ujjayi in yoga is because it's really good for warming the body and preparing it for practice. So again, I'm just going to leave a few moments of silence. Nobody can hear you. But as you inhale and exhale, see if you can make sounds like ocean waves. And I'm really not sure if you can hear me do that, but I tried. That's Ujjayi. And then we have belly breathing. So belly breathing is literally, you can either put your hands on your belly or you can have them in your lap, but as you inhale, you're inhaling, you're filling your belly up like a balloon. And then as you exhale, you're just constricting the belly back in. So filling the belly up like a balloon as you inhale, and then exhaling, constricting everything back in. And that's restoring balance. So again, this is also a calming breath, but it's more about balance and coming back into that present moment. And what I've also noticed, a lot of people, they breathe from their chest, or they breathe really shallow, like if they're in a rush, or again if they're about to do some sort of public speaking, or just that there's a lot going on in life. We're busy people all the time now. This is just taking a moment to really breathe from the belly, really expand the rib cage instead of always breathing into the chest, having those really shallow breaths into the chest, of belly breathing. And then I'll do 2 more types of breath. One of them is an energizing breath. And so I don't do this with children very often because I often need to calm them down in a class, but if you needed to energize children, you could do this. Or for yourself if you want to re-energize. Now this is where you would take 3 quick inhales in through the nose, and then you would exhale all the air out. So 3 quick inhales in through the nose, and again, practice, nobody can hear you, nobody can see you. Exhaling all the air out, and that is an energizing breath, also known as bunny breath. And then finally, the last one, a calming breath, is a little bit of breath retention. So this one would be kind of mixing in that idea of samavriti, so that equal turning breath, equal count breath. So you'll inhale, say to a count of 4, and then exhale all of your air out to a count of 4, and then hold the breath at the bottom of that exhale. So just hold it for a beat or 2 before inhaling again. So inhaling to a count of 4. And then exhaling to a count of 4. And holding that breath at the bottom just for a beat. Inhaling again. And then exhaling, holding the breath. And doing that for a few rounds, maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. And that's a really great calming breath. So really great before you go to bed at night. That's one that can help you with a more restful sleep, more peaceful sleep. This is a good one to do if you're taking a later evening yoga class, nothing that's too strenuous, or at the end of a yoga class before your shavasana, even to get you set up for your shavasana, which is that final relaxation state. So just a couple of different types of breath to use to help you settle, using at the office if you're anxious, to calm you down before you go to bed. Again, I really want people to think of how can I bring mindfulness and meditation into a really practical setting, not necessarily just when I'm doing yoga. Any thoughts on any of those? Anything that you need me to repeat? Okay, I don't see anything. Beth, do you see anything? No?
I don't see anything.
Okay, great. And again, you'll see my contact information. Please reach out to me. Please, if you have questions, I love answering and helping and identifying things. So I do challenge you guys to maybe set aside some time each day. If you're brand new to meditation, just set aside maybe 2 to 3 minutes every day for maybe just next week, and try some of these different practices, whether it's a guided meditation or some music or a mantra or whatever, and see how it makes you feel, and maybe just jot it down, okay, this is how I was feeling before meditation, this is how I'm feeling afterwards, or after a week, has my outlook changed a little bit differently? So I definitely challenge you to that. And then if you have been meditating, maybe try and take it for a little bit longer. Maybe try and incorporate some of these pranayama techniques into it. So, and again, it's kind of like, running a marathon. You don't just all of a sudden one day go out and run 1,000,000 miles. You take it little by little. So one day you do 2-minute meditation, then maybe a 5-minute, maybe a 10, maybe a 20. And not all of us have time to do a 20-minute meditation every day. So do what you can. And then also maybe try this idea of mindfulness in terms of observing your thoughts. So as you have all these thoughts, stopping and saying, okay, I'm not my thoughts, what's going on here? Let me try and compartmentalize and see how I can better organize them and structure my next day, That's all you can do. And then my last one, I challenge people to this all the time, is just like put the phone away. Just really put the phone away. And I don't mean, all the time, but like let yourself be bored sometimes. Like if you are waiting for, the bus or train or like a friend to show up for lunch or whatever, like just put the phone away. Like you don't have to be on the phone. Just like observe what's going on around you. Observe, like what the weather is, what people are talking about, what the restaurant looks like, or whatever. And that is being mindful. That is a wonderful way to practice mindfulness. So my next slide, resources, just some things that I check into quite a bit. There's a couple of articles, and I'm sure we can probably send this out to you. Articles, this one's from Real Simple, and so they just go into a couple of different types of yoga, and they go through like Ashtanga and Kundalini and Vinyasa, Bikram, all of those. There's an article I'm a contributing writer for Level League, so it's a site for professional women. And this is it was an intro to meditation article that I wrote for them. Apps, I talked about these, Headspace, Om Vana, Breathe. Some of my favorite yoga books, The Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele, and then Living Your Yoga by Judith Lassiter. And I constantly reference these. They're really quick reads. I mean, you could read them in like a day. They're really quick. But I just constantly come back to them for inspiration. Instagram, so Yoga Inspiration, I love following them. There's a lot of, I always get asked, like, oh, like what Instagram accounts do you follow? And there's a lot of, Insta famous yogis that do some really crazy poses, and that's like fun and interesting to look at. But I mean, they're definitely meaningful. They have some great quotes, but Yoga Inspiration is still my favorite. A good podcast is Shell Hamilton. She does a meditation podcast that I really enjoy. Fun fact, she's a hypnotist. So I'm always like, oh gosh, like how deep are we going to go in this meditation? But she's really phenomenal. And then some websites, yogadownload.com, yogajournal.com, Do You Yoga, Mind Body Green, Yoga Anonymous. Just some good things to do some further reading and some further research for yourself. And then lastly, my information. I work for the foundation, but I also pursue yoga quite a bit on the side. So Yoga Dear is my personal business. Yoga Developing Self-Esteem and Respect is what it stands for. So I'd love you to check out the site. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest at Like a Lady L, and then my email is leanne.ark@gmail.com. So if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. I also I've been doing some recording of videos and things too, so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that in terms of yoga, let me know. So with that, any final questions? We have about 10 minutes or so. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, what you might take away from this webinar.
So Amy says, thank you for the informative talk.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Anything else?
She follows up with, meditation seems hard to master.
Meditation is, well, it's a practice. It definitely is harder some days than others. You just can't beat yourself up about it. But I'm sure some of you guys have read Eat, Pray, Love, but if you've read it before, I would highly recommend reading it again, because Elizabeth Gilbert has I think that her stance on meditation is pretty spot on. So it is hard, but it becomes easier.
Valerie would like to know, where do you practice?
Where do I practice meditation or yoga? Well, I guess I'll answer both. So I meditate every morning. I try to, and I travel a lot for Kappa, so I definitely still try. I meditate I have a little studio space. We just moved into a new house, so I have a little studio space, and then I also have a little room a space aside in our bedroom, our master bedroom. So I just literally like sit on a block or a pillow and meditate there. And then for my actual practice, so there is a studio that I teach at that I'll practice at once a week. And then I practice a lot at home. I use yogadownload.com, and I take a lot of their videos. And then when I travel to DC, Chicago, New York, Boston, kind of all over the place. I'll take classes there.
Stephanie would like to know, do you have any recommended yoga practice for someone looking to work on their flexibility?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I would check out, depending on if you're a beginner or not, like make sure that you do a beginner class first. That way you can just get the basic poses. Flexibility, I would say, try, see if there's, I don't know if there's a yin yoga class near you, but yin, Y-I-N, as in Nancy, and that's a great place to go. And then any one of, your vinyasa classes, a level one, even hot yoga class, a hatha yoga, any of those will be helpful in terms of working on flexibility. And also let your teacher know. Let your teacher know like some of your goals, and especially if you're new. The other thing I'll mention, I was going to mention this earlier and I forgot, is if you're new to yoga, and even if you're not, I highly recommend taking a private lesson, even if it's just once or twice with a yoga teacher. And I know it's a little bit more expensive depending on if you're in a metro area or not, but I highly recommend doing that because you can tell them what your goals are, and the next time that you go into a class, a group class, you kind of already have in mind what you as an individual need to do to work towards those goals, if that makes sense. Hopefully that was helpful.
So Amy says she's going to try to meditate more. Her mind always seems to be moving to other thoughts.
Totally, the monkey mind, and that's totally fine. That's the whole idea, is like recognizing, okay, like this thought is here. I'm gonna put it over on a park bench, or I'm gonna visualize like popping it like a bubble or whatever, and try and just focus on my breath or on the mantra. I totally get it.
Emily would like to know if there's a best time of day to meditate or do yoga.
Oh, that's such a personal preference. I mean, my personal preference is to do it in the morning because I feel like things come up during the day, like all these things happen during the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired or whatever. And sometimes when I was first practicing meditation, I would do it at night and then I was so tired I would just fall asleep. And that's like kind of not the point. You're kind of you're in a relaxed state of consciousness. So I liked the morning, but some people they prefer they would rather do the afternoon. If you have a yoga class that you can get to over the lunch hour, if you work during the day, that's a really great time to kind of break up your day. I really recommend that too. But just see what works for you.
Heather is wondering if you could tell her some meditation resources for children with anxiety issues.
There is, Heather, I might have to get your information because I do have some books that I'm like totally drawing a blank on, but I can see they're like the covers of them. The Breathe app is really good. I did a presentation at headquarters for some women with children who had anxiety and wanted some more help with focus. But the Breathe app is really good. And then I would look on Amazon and just like you can just search children's meditations. But I believe the book is called like Starlight, Star Bright. And they have it's like some guide, it truly is like guided meditations, but they're visualizations written for children, and they're phenomenal.
So Heather, if you
can
send an email just to Leanne, then she can get in touch with you with those direct links for you.
Awesome. Anything else?
I don't have anything else at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, please feel free to email me. Guys, this was so much fun. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying up if you're on the East Coast. I'm usually like literally in bed right now. But I really appreciate it. I hope it was helpful.
So do we have any last questions out there? Got one here. Melanie asks, I've heard that adult coloring books are a way to become more mindful. Do you have any other activities you could recommend that are similar?
Sure, yeah. Anything that those adult coloring books are everywhere, aren't they? I kind of love them. Yeah, anything that I think gets you into just like a more creative stance. So depending on what you like, that could be cooking. Like that puts me into a really mindful moment. Like I really need to make sure I'm like looking at my hands as I'm chopping vegetables. Painting, gardening, like really getting outside, working out can help you be more mindful. So whether it's like running for you or biking, practicing yoga, I think that anything that really kind of like gets you in that moment and that creative stance is really helpful. Reading can do that for some people too. I've also noticed, this is really interesting and maybe a little bit off topic, but that reading can help you be more mindful, like really practicing of like, I am, reading this book, but what happens is our minds are so conditioned to our phones and to screens and things that we're having trouble focusing on that. So that's why I say maybe like trying things that are more creative, that really force you to focus. Yeah, great question. Anything else?
I don't see anything else coming in.
All right.
So do you have any final thoughts, Leanne, before I close the webinar out?
No, I think that was it. I can't say, how much fun this was. And thank you. Thank you, Kappa, for having me. And thank you all for joining in today or tonight. I should say.
I just have one more from Cindy. She said she was late joining the webinar. Are the slides available? So
I'm sure that we can get them to you.
also in about 2 weeks, the webinar will be available on the Kappa website. So you'll be able to listen in and see again in a few weeks.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, thank you, Leanne, for leading the session. It was incredibly insightful and a lot of great information for all of us to take with us back into our everyday lives. And thank you for all of our attendees for your participation today. If you have any questions or comments about the topic, you can email Leanne directly. Her email is just up on the screen right now. If you would like to become more involved in Kappa's virtual training or webinar programs, we would love to have you join our producer team. Please contact Karen Holmes at KKG headquarters for details. The benefits are excellent. The opportunity to show support for Kappa's webinar programs and get a front row seat to great presentations like tonight's. As we close the webinar, a survey will open on your screen. You will be prompted to respond to a few evaluation questions. Please take a moment to share your thoughts on today's webinar. Your feedback will help us shape future webinar training events. If you have any additional comments or questions whatsoever, please send an email to kholmes, that's KHOLMES, at kkg.org. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and have a lovely evening.